Hey there, it's Melissa Benaroya with Childproof Parenting Live, and I'm excited to be back in my home office today. It's the first time I've been here in many, many weeks. As I had shared with you before, I was traveling. I was in Israel for a few weeks and then took a fun family trip with my mother and my kids to Lake Chelan, Washington. So thrilled to be back. I love all the questions that I've been getting over the last few weeks, and I want to make sure I answer one of those today. I actually chose a question that was related to this week's topic. And this week was the second part of the Summer Sanity series that I posted. And I just wanted to share with you two more ideas on how to make sure that you have a fabulous summer with your family and with your children. So before I do that, I often will share some of the things that I write and talk about with my friend Karen at Hey Sigmund. And we were chatting last week and I thought, oh, she would love some of these things to share with her readers. So I sent some over to her and she said, you know, it's freezing here. I forget that many of you are on the other side of the world and it is the middle of winter. So I apologize if some of these topics are not completely relevant to you at this moment. But what I will say is these topics do apply to any time of year. I just think that this is a really great time to revisit them and be mindful of some of these ways just to ensure that everybody is having more fun together and things go more so smoothly. Can't say smoothly. So this week on the Summer Sanity series part 2, I talked about limiting sugar intake and creating more consistency. And as if you remember, we're able to watch the one I recorded last week in Chelan. I talked a lot about sleep and the importance of sleep and keeping consistency in sleep, especially because nights are longer and it's very easy to let things slip, but kids do not do well without a good night's sleep, as do parents, as you probably already know, those of you that are still sleep deprived. So sleep really important, staying on those schedules, being consistent. We also talked about limiting screens and being really clear and setting boundaries with when, where, how much, and what kids can watch and engage in. So those were the two things we talked about last week. Hopefully you had an opportunity to think about it and talk to your family about it, and maybe apply it to the way that you're going to parent this summer. So the first thing this week that I talked about was limiting sugar. Yes, summer is hot and it's fun, and there always seems to be some kind of a treat or a snack or an ice cream or a s'mores or something that's coming out. And even though it's fun to enjoy those things, we really have to make sure that those are treats and not a staple in our child's summer diet. Because as you probably already know, at least here in the United States, we have a big problem. And that's called obesity. And obesity doesn't just start when you're older and you start eating 2 gallons of ice cream. It starts with those habits that you start really early on in childhood. So being just mindful of how much your child is consuming, and thinking ahead of time about where you're going, what's going to be served, and what your child needs. So being really mindful, because not only is obesity on the rise, but so is diabetes. So 2 really important things that I'm not saying your children are going to get, but there is science behind the importance of maintaining a healthy diet. And the science and the research has also shown that children have a more difficult time controlling themselves and behaving when there's been a lot of sugar introduced. So not only do they hit that high, but they crash and hit a low. And both of those are kind of a nightmare, at least for me, when I'm out socially with my kids and trying to have fun. So being mindful of sugar intake, really important. And I have actually a reader question I'm going to answer at the end here that is related to that. The second thing is keeping consistency. So things, we want to have a flexible summer. We want to kind of go with the flow. And this is actually something I talked about with Casey from Joyful Courage on her podcast a few weeks ago, which you can find on the Childproof Parenting blog as well. but keeping some consistency in your child's schedule. And it's not every day from 9 to 5, they keep the same schedule, because most likely your week to week schedules change it, whether it's camp or traveling or whatever. But I think just trying to find a piece of your weekly schedule that will allow for some ease. So whether it's getting out the door in the morning, or a bedtime routine, or just some kind of ritual that you include in your daily life, it will make things flow a little bit easier, and it will help things stay calm, because the brain has developed where it tends to be calmed through repetition and ritual. So thinking about what are some of the routines and rituals that you keep during the school year that you can maintain through your summer months. So once again, it's not do it every day at the exact same time all day long, but just a few things. That consistency will help create a feeling of security and calm for kids throughout their summer, and for parents too, because life is a little bit more predictable, and we're not just kind of like living life on the fly constantly. I mean, we're obviously doing that a lot of time during the summer, but it's nice just to know there's some flow that happens. So if you want some of these tips, you can find it on the Childproof Parenting blog. I actually created a download with all 4 tips, giving you just a little bit of information and background and ideas. So you can download that to have that. It's always nice to have. I also included in the second blog post, the second part of the series, an example of my routine chart or responsibility chart that I use with kids. That not only includes kind of like a picture and a guideline, which actually has pictures of your kids doing the routine, not like a cute character or words, but also just some guidelines on how to create that routine with your child. So if you want those, I will make sure I link to those down below a little bit later today when I post this. But I do want to answer Jennifer R's question. So Jennifer R, this was actually perfect. I picked this out because it was so related. Said, what do I do when every time we go somewhere, there's ice creams and treats and ices and all of that? So that's a great question, because it's constant throughout the summer months. So a few things to think about, Jennifer. Number one, when you're going to the beach or the pool or a party or wherever you're going with your kids, there's bound to be snacks and treats. So I think making sure before you leave for those places and having a healthy snack, getting out some celery sticks and carrots or apples, cutting up those things and making sure your kids eat before you go so they don't show up hungry and want to pay out on all the junk that's there. I mean, I know for myself, I have to do that too. Whenever I go to a party, I make sure I eat like a bunch of healthy stuff before I leave, because otherwise I could sit at the dessert bar or eat cheese all night long. So just make sure that you get some really healthy foods in them before you leave. If that's not possible, chop it up and bring it with you. Have some stuff that you have on the go. And that doesn't mean saying you have to prepare right before you leave. I like to prepare things at the beginning of the week and just have snack bags of fruits and veggies that we can just grab and go. So making sure we have those. Another thing that I think can be really helpful, and I do this a lot with my kids, not just during the summer, but all year long, is talking about what the expectations are when we go to these places. So we can let them know, like, hey guys, last night we were at a birthday party and we had cake. If there's ice cream and cookies and that type of thing, we're not going to be having those today. So just know, because we don't want to get engaged in that dialogue, that power struggle of like, why can't I have a cookie? So-and-so's having it, right? Like we've all had that conversation. So setting those expectations up before you go to a social event, I think is really helpful. And even in our family, you know, my kids and I have talked about what is okay, and I want them to have treats. I don't want them to feel neglected. But like, we have treats once or twice a week. We don't have them every single day. So I think making sure that we're really mindful and have those conversations, we set those limits together with our kids, is really, really important. And just an example, this came up last night. I have friends in town who have 2 kids. We all wanted to go to Menchie's, which is frozen yogurt. My kids and I already have an agreement. We don't even have to talk about when we go to Menchie's, they fill up just a little bit in their cup. Because I've been to Menchie's when people have like the gigantic size and they fill it to the top. So, and that never gets eaten anyways, right? So they get like 1-2 little pumps of the frozen yogurt and they get 2 small little scoops of toppings, and that's it. And there's no discussion. There's no, oh mom, you're so mean. Like, it's just what it is. So they know if we're going there, that's the expectation. So I think setting those expectations ahead of time can make a really big difference. Now, I just saw Catherine. Hi, Catherine. So glad that you popped in today. Oh, good. So you are going to go check out the blogs, which is great, and you're relocating to a new city. Wow. So that's going to be interesting and exciting. So as things come up, Catherine, please feel free to reach out to me, because there's definitely challenges with big transitions and moving. And I see that your daughter is not going to be in school for a few months. So some of these summer things may be applying to you during your move, may be helpful. So feel free to send in some questions, because I like to answer your questions here live on Fridays, but I also, as you probably already seen, have an Ask the Parent Coach blog post as well. So I'm trying to get one of those in at least a month. So if you have something that I can write an entire blog post on, I'd love to do that as well. And I have a running list, so I know many of you have sent them to me. I just want to plan them at the right time, so I'll make sure to do that. So great to see you, Catherine. I'm so glad you're here joining us today. So I'm going to leave you just with those two things this week. So once again, last week we talked about sleep and monitoring screens and apps and computers and all kinds of technology. This week we talked about being mindful about the amount of sugar kids are getting, setting expectations ahead of time, being mindful and keeping healthy treats available, and also trying to find areas where we can keep consistency in their daily lives or their weekly routines. So, oh wow. Going to New York City, that's exciting. That is, I can imagine being overwhelmed. I don't know if I can move to New York City. That is a huge move, but very exciting. So congratulations. Okay, so I'm gonna leave you with those two things. Remember, once again, last week was screens and sleep. This week's consistency and sugar intake. And you know what? It's not to do it all perfect, and it's not to do it all. Pick one of those things that you really want to work on. But I guarantee that if you make this small investment, that it's going to pay off, and you're going to have a lot more fun together, and you're going to avoid meltdowns and power struggles and all of those things that kind of like ruin everybody's fun, your fun and your kids' fun as well. So thank you for showing up today and watching. Please, if you're joining us later after this is posted, feel free to post a question and I'll be sure to answer it here on the blog. I do want to give you a little preview. I will be doing a free back to school challenge. So if at the end of the summer you're feeling like everything's gone to crap, I will be here to help get you back on track. So just know that at the end of the summer, I will be here. We'll either do like a 5 or 7 day challenge to get everything back on track so the school year has a nice, easing start. All right, well, everybody have a fabulous day. I am going to head out to the pool with my kids this afternoon and our friends visiting from Los Angeles and their kids. So I hope you all have a chance to enjoy some beautiful weather, at least if you're here in the States. I understand if you're in the UK and Australia, it's not so beautiful and nice right now, and I apologize. So come and visit us. We would love to have you. All right, everybody, take care, and I will see you next week. Bye.